When I was 26, I met a new friend for dinner, and he began to share his childhood story with me. And it was the first time anyone had ever shared a story about childhood trauma. His vulnerability with me made me feel safe enough to share my story for the first time. It was really the first time in my life that I had shared my story with absolutely anybody, and I shared it with practically a stranger. But in that moment, I stopped letting my story own me, and I started to really own my story. My first memory was when I was 4 years old, the day that my mom and stepdad got arrested. Overnight, my two brothers and I went to live with my dad, and honestly, my life would never be the same. Shortly after, my dad remarried, and his new wife had 2 sons of her own, so now we were a family of 7, 5 kids, which included 4 boys, and I was the only girl and the youngest. Growing up, our house was filled with some really great moments. We had extremely high moments of birthday parties and friends, but they were usually followed by low and explosive moments of rage and physical violence, mental and verbal abuse, and neglect. No one had a clue what was going on within our 4 walls. And that's when school became my safe haven. I was riddled with shame because of what was going on at home, so I just poured everything that I had into school so that I could receive some sort of positive validation when I was there. Honestly, it served me really well. I was on the dance team. I was the captain of the step team. I was the news anchor for my high school. I had really great grades. I graduated like top of my class, got a full ride to college, graduated college summa cum laude. I actually went and got my master's and passed the CPA exam and landed a job at a Big 4 firm. Honestly, all of those things, as great as they were really just masks to hide the feelings of unworthiness that I felt every single day of my life. And nobody knew, not even my best friends that I had known for my whole life had any idea that that's what my childhood was like. I just had everybody fooled, and I was living a lie. It felt like that every single day. I had this realization when I was at dinner with my friend that if I could go the first 26 years of my life without anybody knowing the most painful parts of my story, how many other people were suffering in silence too? Honestly, finding out about the Adverse Childhood Experience Study, or some people would refer to it as the ACE study, was a game changer for me. It was like finding the holy grail of information that validated why I am the way that I am. Basically, what they did was determine the association between childhood trauma and long-term social, behavioral, and physical health problems. Most importantly, for the first time in my life, I had scientific evidence that I was not alone. So even though I have an ACE score of 9 out of the 10 most common adverse childhood experiences, the ACE study shows that over 60% of people have at least one adverse childhood experience. Decades of feeling like I was the only person who came from an extremely dysfunctional family were put to rest in an instant. I finally understood that I was a product of the fact that hurt people hurt people. ACEs are intergenerational, so I recognized with all this ACE research that if I wanted to stop the cycle, I had to stop the pain, I had to stop the hurting. Now I'm a testimony that healed people heal people, because after that dinner, I finally had a desire to heal. So I read literally everything I could get my hands on as it pertained to ACEs, childhood trauma, self-development, mindfulness, positive thinking, and I started journaling like crazy. I got into therapy and took responsibility for my life. I started to identify the dysfunctional patterns and behaviors that were holding me back, and slowly but surely I started to change them. And finally, I started loving myself for really the first time in my life. Now I have the absolute honor and privilege to share my story with others, because I know that just as someone else's story prompted my healing journey, I get to encourage and empower people to start theirs. I get to help people see that healing is possible and inspire them to face the thing that they've been running from for years. Because I've found that on the other side of your pain is your purpose, it's your passion, and honestly, it's your freedom. Adversity is a fact of life. There are some lessons and blessings that only it can teach us. And most of the time, the adversity is not our fault, but we have complete control over how we respond to it. We can let it defeat us, or we can see it for exactly what it is, an opportunity for growth.